Today, we're diving into one of the most intense and, let's be honest, often painful relationship dynamics out there. We're talking about what happens when someone with an anxious, preoccupied attachment style gets together with a fearful avoidant. It's a real collision, you know? Two people who both desperately want connection, but are kind of driven apart by the very same anxiety that fuels them. It means the relationship pretty much lives in this state of high alert. It's this constant, exhausting push and pull between a desperate need for closeness and a terrifying fear of that very same thing. All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the initial high anxiety collision. Then we'll unmask the core wounds that are really driving everything. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of the push-pull dance, and then, and this is the important part, we'll map out a path to forging earned security and building a completely new foundation. So, what is actually going on in this dynamic? Well, at its heart, it's a huge paradox. You've got two people, both operating from a place of really high anxiety about love, but their strategies for dealing with that anxiety are in total direct opposition. And look, this isn't your classic one secure person, one insecure person kind of thing. No, no. Both the anxious preoccupied partner and the fearful avoidant partner are way over on the high anxiety end of the spectrum. That shared anxiety, that's the fuel for the whole fire. Okay, so this is where it all goes sideways, right? For the anxious preoccupied partner, getting closer, being intimate, that's the solution to their anxiety. It's their safe harbor. But for the fearful avoidant, that exact same closeness feels like a danger zone. So one person is running toward intimacy to feel safe, while the other is running away from it for the very same reason. It's a total clash. So you might be asking, where does all this come from? Well, these behaviors are anything but random. They are deeply rooted in childhood experiences that literally created the blueprints for how each of these people navigates relationships as adults. In psychology, they call these blueprints internal working models. The easiest way to think about them is like a subconscious rulebook you learned as a kid. A rulebook about what love is, whether you can trust people, and what you have to do to get your basic needs met. For the anxious partner, their core wound is all about inconsistency. They likely had caregivers who were loving sometimes, but other times they were absent or distracted. So they learned they had to turn up the volume on their needs just to be seen. Now, for the fearful avoidant, the wound is way deeper. It's about unsafety, even betrayal, because a caregiver was often a source of both comfort and fear. I mean, what a no-win situation, right? It leads to this core belief that nobody, not even themselves, can really be trusted. So, how does all that childhood stuff actually show up in an adult relationship today? Well, it plays out as this constant, absolutely exhausting, and really painful push-pull dance. And what happens is you get this classic dynamic. The anxious, preoccupied partner almost always falls into the role of the pursuer, constantly trying to close any emotional gap they feel. And the fearful avoidant partner, feeling totally threatened by that pursuit, becomes the withdrawer, pulling away just to feel a little bit of safety. And here's the really devastating part. This cycle feeds itself. It's a feedback loop from hell. The anxious partner feels some distance, so they pursue, maybe with a million texts. The fearful avoidant feels smothered and withdraws to breathe. But that withdrawal triggers the anxious partner's deepest fears of abandonment. So what do? They escalate. They pursue even harder. And that, of course, just confirms the fearful avoidant's belief that intimacy is a trap, so they retreat even further. Each person's attempt to feel safe is the very thing that triggers the other person's deepest wound. This leads to a state that the sources call stable instability. And that phrase just nails it, doesn't it? It feels stable because the pattern is so predictable you could set your watch to it. But it's fundamentally unstable because neither partner can ever find a place of genuine safety or peace inside the relationship. Okay, I know, that all sounds incredibly bleak. But here's the really hopeful part. Your past does not have to be your destiny. It is absolutely possible to break this cycle by forging something called earned secure attachment. So, what is earned security? It's the process of consciously learning and internalizing a new, secure way of being in relationships, even if your history is insecure. It's all about acknowledging your past without letting it define you, and actively, literally building new neural pathways in your brain for connection. So the way forward is this really powerful three-pillar model: positive remapping, developing metacognitive skills, and building collaborative skills. Let's break down what each of those actually means. So pillar number one, positive remapping, is all about healing those old wounds. It involves using guided imagery to create an ideal parent figure in your mind, a figure who is always loving, always protective, always there for you. By tapping into this feeling of a secure base inside yourself over and over, you start to build a new mental map where closeness finally starts to feel safe. Pillar 2 is metacognitive skills. That sounds fancy, but it just means learning to think about your thinking. It's the superpower of recognizing when you're triggered and creating a pause, just a little space between that trigger and your automatic reaction. So instead of instantly chasing or running, you learn to step back and ask, wait, what part of me is activated right now, and why? And pillar 3 is collaborative skills. This is where you take all that inner work and bring it into the relationship. It means you stop the protest behaviors, you stop the silent withdrawal, and instead you commit to total transparency, literally wearing your heart on your sleeve and just talking about your needs and fears directly. And when both partners actually commit to this work, the transformation is just profound. It's not just about managing conflict better, it's about each person becoming a more whole, more integrated version of themselves. For the anxious partner, the journey is about learning to self-soothe, finding that sense of worth inside themselves instead of constantly needing it from their partner. And for the fearful avoidant, the journey is about unfreezing their nervous system and discovering that vulnerability isn't a trap. In fact, it's the hack that leads to the deep connection they've secretly wanted all along. And as you do this work, these new qualities just naturally start to bubble up, what the sources call the 8 C's of the secure self. Things like compassion for yourself and your partner, curiosity instead of judgment, and this growing sense of calm and confidence, even when things feel uncertain. So as we start to wrap this up, let's make it really personal. The next time you feel that old familiar urge to push for more contact or to pull away, I want you to try this. Can you just pause, just for a second, and ask yourself, is this reaction about right now, or is this an emotional short circuit from my childhood? And think about that ideal parent figure we talked about. What would that perfectly loving, perfectly safe presence say to the most scared, vulnerable part of you in that exact moment? What words would make that little kid part of you finally feel seen and safe and valued? And finally, here's the big one, the thought I want to leave you with. How would your entire reaction, your entire dynamic shift if you could see your partner's behavior, their pushing or their pulling, not as a personal attack on you, but simply as their own deeply ingrained automatic strategy for trying to feel safe in the world? What would change then?
Hi, I'm John, and this is I Will Heal. Our curriculum features something for everyone. We know that your pathway to attachment transformation is specific to your parent. Whether you're an FA with a BA partner or an AP recently discarded by a BA, we have you covered. Say for a while, and we hope you'll say, even if for the first time, I will heal.